Hello, friend. Welcome, Carm Capriato, the Town Hall Academy on the Power of Hindsight. We titled this episode, What Would I Tell My Younger Self? Now, three very, very wise men share what they wish they had done earlier in their careers. So why? Why does it take so long to accept ideas, direction, and personal accountability?
I don't know if it's pride at a young age that keeps you from asking for help, but you should put all that aside because getting the right answer and finding the correct path is what matters. And the faster you get there, the faster you're going to be able to set up that retirement account that Ron's talking about. And whatever your goals are in life, you'll be getting there faster by doing that sooner.
Welcome, automotive aftermarketers, to a Remarkable Results Radio Town Hall Academy. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results.
Hello, friend. Carm Capriato here, the Automotive Aftermarket Podcast guy and the founder and host of Remarkable Results Radio, the Town Hall Academy, and Carmcast. Now, we've been there for you to help meet the COVID-19 challenge, and on my homepage, remarkableresults.biz, we've listed all the episodes that deal with this pandemic. Now, more on that in a second. You know, we're so proud to partner with ShopWhere and have them as a sponsor. What's going on in your shop management system? Well, you know, no other tool can transform your business like your management system. So please consider ShopWare's leading shop management system. You know, it's helping shops like yours generate more profit per ticket and get more efficiency from their staff. Get a free demo at getshopware.com. That's a new URL for you now. Getshopware.com. Hey, look, I need to thank the great group of aftermarket professionals who've come on the podcast within the last 3 weeks to share their wisdom, thoughts, and tactics on dealing with COVID-19. We've produced over a dozen shows related to surviving the pandemic between Remarkable Results Radio, the Town Hall Academy, and Carmcast. Now, they're all listed on the homepage for quick reference. However, you'll find them on your podcast listening app, but please keep in mind, most of the Carmcasts are only available on the website, Facebook, or YouTube because they're video. My goal is to keep you invested in ideas and insights to help you come out of the pandemic healthy enough to rebuild your team and your customer base. Stay strong and safe. Hey, this very intuitive podcast is going to lay up the power of hindsight 2020. You know, the older I got, the smarter my parents got. And I wish I could go back and know what I know now. I'm sure you've said that to yourself a couple of times. You know, sometimes we're too stubborn to listen to any wise man and feel they have a good solution to your current problem. Hey, this is an episode I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And every episode that we do is steeped in wisdom. However, this discussion is the straight arm that you may need to knock you over and then get up with a newfound attitude that you aren't the smartest person in the room. Find the show notes and my guests' bios and links to their previous episodes at remarkableresults.biz/A166. The talking points are there and will make for a great meeting agenda. With me is Ron Haugen, Chris Monroe, and Doug Grills. Welcome. We're here to talk about What Would I Tell My Younger Self? It's an episode that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I've been so lucky to get a few great shop owners and a former shop owner here. I know we're in unprecedented times. On my homepage on remarkableresults.biz, I've got this entire section dedicated to COVID-19. Any podcast, any Carmcast, anything we've done that has had a panel on and an open discussion on what's going on inside of shops and what shop owners are doing is there. We also have a section on CDC, on OSHA, and any documents that I've been able to get my hands on from the government. Like, for example, today's the day that you can apply for the SBA. There's an example of the application. It's there. There's also a great form that shows the PPP versus the ELID, the options that you can pick going forward and what the risks are that you have in each of those. A lot of great documents that I've been able to get from people who have said, hey, Carm, take this and share this, and information that I pulled. We're in this thing together, and we're an essential business, which is one of the greatest things that I think exists in our country, is that we're there for the transportation needs of our market. Today's podcast went out was all about what do you need to do to market in these kind of special times of ours. And I had 3 ladies on, and it was an unbelievable episode, and it hit home. And as I said at the top before, is I'm growing my hair. I have no choice. So I want us all to get together and do a hair episode in about a month, and let's see, if I look like I used to look in the 70s, and if Ron has the mullet that he had in the 80s. So we may just do this.
I want to see that too.
Me too. I know. When I think about what you guys have done, and if you ever had a chance to rewound your life in your younger selves, boy, would you be, I'm not going to say the word richer and smarter, but you may be richer and smarter if you had known what you know today back then and hadn't made hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mistakes. Do I dare even put a number on it? No, I shouldn't. But I'm sure if you guys ever took a yellow pad out, you would
be close.
You would be amazing at the amount of money that you used to experiment or try things. So this is a wise episode for I have to tell you something. I want this episode to drill into the youth of our industry, the people and the young men and women who are starting their shops, and the husbands and wife saying, I've always had this dream of owning my own business, and look at what I can do with my hands. I can fix cars. And sometimes those things just don't compute together, because running a business is so different than the talent that you need to be a great technician. So I want this, I've got to do my best when we get ready to market this show, once it's recorded and it goes out as a podcast next Thursday, is to say, hey, I don't care what age you are in your business and how many years you've been doing this. There's some great, we've been doing wisdom shows, paying it forward for 5 years, 700 plus episodes between all the different shows that I do. But to me, this may be one of the most important shows that we do. And I want to start with you, Doug. We have learned so much about the humility that's necessary to accept what you need to learn. Was that a big turning point for you?
It absolutely was. To me, when you're younger and you're brash and you're bold and you're confident, those are all great traits that you need to have when you're stepping into an entrepreneurial journey, right? And you're venturing out and hoping that you're going to be able to make the right decisions that are good for your business and for your customers. So those are all great traits to have. But one of the things that you realize over time is, I believe this, that when it comes to learning and growth and development, the single most important trait is humility, being humble. And no matter how good you are or how much you learn, or, as you talk to other people and to the people that work for you, you have to always remind yourself and remind them that being humble is an important thing, because it opens you up to listening, to growth, to learning, to admitting a mistake. Because that's an important leadership skill too, right? You mentioned at the outset, we made mistakes, and you're right, it's probably a big number. But you have to constantly be open and willing to humble yourself and look for answers that will help you be successful in your journey.
Ron, was there a moment in time that you realized that you didn't know everything, so you started to say, hey, I don't know about that. Tell me again?
Absolutely, and that was actually my first meeting when I joined a peer group, and I even had second thoughts about joining a peer group, because after all, I'd been in business for 2 years, I knew everything, but I remember at the first meeting, we started going over KPIs and numbers and talking about stuff, and it was probably 15 minutes into that meeting, I sat there and I thought, man, I don't know anything. That was a turning point. It changed my life.
So that's when you realized you weren't the smartest guy in the room.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. At that time, I was probably the dumbest guy in the room. I was new. And
that was good, but you had to accept that. That was the key you had to accept that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now as a coach and working with clients, is this one of the big hurdles that you come over? Calm down, boy. It's like Doug was saying, this entrepreneurial, that cocky, I know it all attitude. Do you have to every once in a while break the stallion?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Not on a huge plant, because by the time I'm introduced to a client. I mean, they've already come there for help, or I mean, they're looking for guidance. They might not know exactly what help they need. They might think, "Oh, I need help with marketing," when actually they need help with something else. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we look at the financials and what they've got going on, and you realize that okay, I identify problem area, and then you start having those conversations, and then you think, well, I don't have any problem with that, and so you kind of. Yeah, you do have to kind of break them down, but you have to do it in a kind way. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy to just sit there and say, hey, look, you suck at what you're doing, because they don't. They're obviously there at some point. But yeah, there's certainly that. You do have to break them down. Absolutely.
I think I heard the word refining. Where we are, Chris, and we may be successful in a lot of areas, but we just need to be refined.
Yes, I think the humility and the transition, I think learning, the process of learning, it's okay to not be right. And once you get slapped in the face and find out, oh, okay, I am the dumbest guy in the room, which has happened to me so many times. Once you have that journey, it's actually a release. I think we start looking for those rooms where we are the dumbest guy. I want to be around guys like on the screen that know and have learned and have experienced things. And once you say, okay, it's all right, I don't have to be right. So now that's out of the way. Let me go figure out some things. Ask questions.
Thank you for that, Chris. I see a lot in social media that somebody posts an answer and there's answers like within a second somebody is replying, and I always wonder what's the background of that individual. How much money is in the bank, what's the margin, what's the net operating income, and it would almost be something neat if there was this rating system that says this person is qualified to give that kind of advice. Now, but when you're in a peer group, which is so cool, there's a level of transparency there. Am I right, guys? That is so open that you learn that the advice that you're getting from someone, it has an angle to it, because you've been, this guy's really good. He was broken many times. He went bankrupt before, and you figuring out where the best advice comes from because of that transparency. Doug, you must have that in your peer group.
We certainly do. And I think the point is well taken that, when Ron's talking about peer groups and looking for help, and, Chris mentions, being humble enough to admit that you need help, that's your first step. But when you get in that peer group and you get the opportunity to get around other people that are doing things differently, and they've all got different levels of success, they've achieved things in different ways, it's the diversity of the group that really brings tremendous power to the experience, because everybody comes at it from a little bit of a different perspective. And so it's almost like, when you think about the Napoleon Hill concept of the mastermind, right? That getting the 20 guys in the room, with their brains focused on somebody's issue, then you're gonna really create a higher level of synergy. Everyone's gonna have a different take, and your job is you can sit there and you can listen to people and hear their suggestions, and there's going to be some that strike you that you think to yourself, man, that may not be exactly right for me, and there are going to be others that speak to you in a way that's powerful, and then you're going to realize, okay, that's something that I can implement. That's something that I'm going to try. And through that process of constantly working together to help everybody improve and grow, that's the ticket, man. That's what gets you where you want to go.
Hey, Carm here, and I bet you think of your shop management system every day and wonder if it's time to make an important change. A change to a modern, efficient, and powerful system. Now, instead of thinking about your old system, I want you to consider ShopWhere, a comprehensive cloud-powered shop management system that gives your customers an end-to-end digital experience that will help you sell more services while making your customers happier. And who doesn't want happier customers? In a study of work orders written and shared on ShopWhere, sharing the digital work order with your customer generated a 12% increase in their likelihood to buy. Now, that translates to additional sales in your business. And with ShopWare's proprietary Parts GP Optimizer, you can boost your parts margin with the click of a button and leave behind the pain of managing an old parts matrix. Put solid gross margin dollars back in your business because ShopWhere puts huge computing power into making you successful. Now it's time. Make the switch to ShopWhere. Get a free live demonstration at shop-where.com and find out how you can make more money from happier customers. Doug, I want to stay with you. You had told me as we were chatting about this whole wisdom thing and pay it back to my younger self, that you shouldn't focus on you as much as you used to.
Yeah, for me, I could look at it, the way I think I could illustrate it is that when I was younger, I was way more focused on me and what I was trying to accomplish and what I was trying to do. We in our company, we started doing goal posters a long time ago. So I have one, just like I ask all of my people to have one. And if you looked at my goal poster 20 years ago, there was a lot of things on there that had to do with me. And if you look at my goal poster now, there's a lot of things on there that have to do with other people. And first and foremost is my employees, because we're trying to build a great company, and we want to have all of our focus be on our employees. And their development and their growth and their ability to achieve their dreams and goals. And that's my goal now. My goal now isn't about me. My goal is about them. And the other thing too that I think is important that was really different for me was, when I started, I come at this thing a little bit differently because I came out of a corporate background. I worked for Mobil Oil for a number of years before I started my own business. And when we were there, it was always, our business model was always customer centric. It was all about the customer. The customer's king, the customer's right. And I'm not saying the customers aren't important, because they are. We all understand that they're the people that are bringing the revenue to the stores, and we're serving them. That's our ultimate objective. But what I also learned was you can't have a customer centric business model. You got to have an employee centric business model. You focus on your people, and your people will do an amazing job of taking care of your customers. And that's the right approach to business. And that's something that when I was younger, I didn't realize that as much as I realized it later on in my life, and certainly as much as I do now.
Ron, you learned something a long time ago, and that is you have to develop a brand.
Absolutely. And a brand for your shop, not a brand that you're piggybacking onto someone else. And I spent a lot of time, a lot of money, branding my company and branding myself as a spokesperson for the company. And the important part of that is you're trying to create, a lot of people call it top of the mind awareness. I call it back of mind awareness. You want to be in the back of those people's minds so that when the check engine light does come on or the brakes do start grinding, you're the one that you think of. And you don't necessarily, there's so much that goes into branding and marketing. I mean, it's an episode within itself. But basically, you want to give them something to remember. And buy 3 get 1 free shock absorbers isn't something to remember. The something to remember is what you're doing in the community. Helping out the homeless, the animals, whatever that type of situation is, and being in front of them. So wherever they look, they see you on a billboard, they see you on a TV commercial, they hear you on the radio, they get something in the mail from you, but you keep in front of them, and it builds that back of mind awareness. So when they need you, you're the first one they're going to think of. Or if they go to Google and do a search for auto repair, you're going to pop up, and they're going to connect the two. They're going to oh, I know that guy, or, oh, I recognize that logo. I recognize that company. And if you do that consistently, and it isn't something that happens over months or days or weeks. I mean, it takes years, but if you do that consistently, I mean, all of a sudden you've got something to sell. You've got a brand. If you talk to somebody about fast food hamburgers, I mean, most people are going to think of McDonald's immediately, whether or not they eat there. I mean, they've branded themselves. So yeah, branding, I think, is one of the more important things to do in the auto repair industry.
How long did it take you? I mean, how many years were you in business before you discovered that?
I think I started doing branding stuff probably in about 2006, 2007. It was right after we moved into the location that I was in when I sold the business. And I continued it up until the week that I sold the business. When it comes to like branding and marketing, I look at it like a NASCAR race. I mean, you want to be in the lead, and you've got to hold that gas pedal to the floor, because the minute you lift, even for a second, somebody's going to go by you. And so I just never stopped.
Great advice. Chris, you go back and talk to your younger self about stress. What would you tell your younger self?
You start to worry and think about what's going to happen tomorrow. And worry is the biggest waste of time. I look back at all the nights that I've laid awake worrying about stupid stuff. And your brain creates about a 98% false rate. And it never happens the way you think about it. So I have created my own stress from within. And then I come to work and deal with all the external pieces. I have found ways to deal with that. Over the years, I find exercise with cycling, racquetball. I've gotten involved in, and that becomes a very social piece for me, a release. But it is just, you have to manage stress. And I used to work all day, take it home, and mull it around in my head at night, and then bring it back to work the next day. And it just continued to build and build and build. I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better way. I eased into it. I backed into controlling that and managing it. Motorcycling, I call it wind therapy, helmet time. I've done a lot of cross country. You and I have talked about that. That has paramount in my life. It's just a way to break it down. You have to find something.
So a young person who's listening, who doesn't have the great wisdom of years that you guys have, saying, wow, I'm not supposed to worry about anything?
No, you don't worry about anything. You just don't worry. Yeah, you plan.
I think the other thing too, when you're talking about stress and how that can affect you, I think, and I think Chris's point's a great one, that you have to find outlets for yourself to do things away from work. And here's the other thing too, we often hear the concept of work-life balance. I read an article one time where they talked about work-life harmony. And I like work-life harmony better.
Me too.
Because balance kind of has this suggestion of like 50-50. And I think as business owners, that's going to be a really, really tough thing to do, right? 50-50 doesn't exactly happen. Right. But if you love your work, then the fact that it takes up more of your time, that's okay. But you still have to be focused on getting yourself time away. That's sharpening the saw, right? The Stephen Covey sharpening the saw, like getting away. And if it's biking or it's running or it's exercising or playing tennis. And the number one thing that I always tell people about that is it requires discipline. In other words, going off and doing things that you love to do, you have to really have the discipline to block out the time to make sure that you do that on a consistent basis, right? So, you mentioned, I'm a runner. I get up every day and run in the morning, and I play tennis and I do other things that I make sure that I'm blocking that time out. And, the guys that work for me know, like I'll be talking to somebody in the evening and I go to play tennis or something. And I'm like, hey man, I got to go. Like I got this thing and I'm going to go and I'll talk to you later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So you got to have real discipline around creating that harmony that's important for your life.
Guys, any wisdom on sales or expenses?
You really want to look at both. I think you should review your expenses every 6 months, or at least at minimum once a year. It's easier to cut expenses than grow sales. And as your sales grow and the money's rolling in, I think several years ago, Mitch Schneider did an article called "The Creep," and it was in one of the magazines, and it talked about how things tend to kind of creep up, and you don't really notice it. All of a sudden, the trash went from $100 a month to $125, and all these little things work their way up, and before you know it, you've increased your expenses by several $100s a month, maybe thousands of dollars, and depending on the size of your business, and you didn't really notice it because it's just kind of an ongoing thing. And so it's time to go back and shop services and review stuff. Do we really need this? Do we really need that? I mean, I've got a client that was top heavy on the front counter, and I've been telling him this for several months. And of course now that things have slowed down, he's laid some people off, and he's actually having some of the most profitable weeks he's ever had. But it's because we've cut back on expenses. Sales, I mean, at the end of the day, if you take the very best care of your employees that you possibly can, and you take the very best care of your customers that you possibly can, the sales are going to happen. they're just going to fall into place because people do business with people they know, love, and trust.
And that's great wisdom that you would want to tell your younger self. Back in the day, guys, were you doing enough of that, paying attention to expense? See, there's Ron. I mean, that's exactly the reaction that I'm looking for. Are you kidding me? No, I was full of piss and vinegar. I was going 90 miles an hour full steam. Family was there, and the business was here, and I was just fixing and depositing and fixing, depositing. You mean there was a business and P&L and KPIs that I had to worry about? That's what this episode is about, and we're talking peer groups and family and stress and all those things. And you know what? I hope we get through. I hope we break through, drill the hole, put the funnel in and fill it with this level of knowledge. I'm looking, so to make this an episode that when we come out of the other side of COVID-19 and we come up to what the new normal is going to be, it's going to be that this outward stress that I was not planning on really had an effect on my business, either good or bad. You guys, I know, are going to come out in really great shape. Ron, I know you're coaching so many people through this. I'm hoping that we don't try to go whatever we're doing now alone, and we don't come out to the other side and try to do it alone.
I wanted to go back to what Ron was saying on the expense side, and I want to tell you a story, a personal story. I had an opportunity 15, 20 years ago to go to a vendor that had a professional financial planner, and he was a QuickBooks guru, a spreadsheet guru, financials, P&Ls, and had an opportunity to go and sit with him for an hour and just go through my financials. And I thought I knew financials. I thought I understood the numbers. Honestly, I didn't. I was looking at the bottom line, and I was looking at a few things, but I didn't really know how to read them. And the guy's name was Jack Phillips, and he was a main financial guy for Michelin. And so we sat down, and Jack went through my records or my books with me, and we talked about it. And he said, "Chris," he said, "you're in trouble." He said, "You got a lot of activity and no profitability." And so he started showing me how to read these financials. Scared the living crap out of me. Scared me to death. I came back, I got with my accountant, and I said, this is not good. And I sort of blamed him for a while. I put it off, and I said, I got to know what he's talking about. And what I realized was that because I had a lot of activity, my business was very busy, a lot of vehicles in and out, just, I didn't stop all day. I thought I was doing all the right things. Not the case at all. Once I started learning my financials and how to read them, and that's something I do in the coaching world, is spend time. We talk about financials a lot, and it's amazing the information that's there. Telling my younger self that is, if I didn't say anything else today, that would be it. Get in there and understand your financials. As much as you hate it, much as it scares you, go do it.
Can I add one other thing too? I'll add something else too that, just to build on this conversation about expenses, is that, controlling expenses, as Ron talked about, I mean, that's a tactic, something that you should do periodically to try to review everything that you have going on and make sure that you're spending wisely. But more than just the tactic, I would say to the younger guys, my younger self, it's a mindset. And that's probably the most important thing. My father told me one time, a long time ago, that you should always have the mindset that things aren't good, that things aren't going great. And regardless of how successful you are, keep that mindset handy, because it'll become useful. And you look at where we are today, right? I mean, with everything that's going on now, man, if you didn't have that mindset all along, you might be in some serious trouble. And I feel for anybody who's in that situation if they are. But you should always look at your expenses like things aren't going well. What would you do? What would you spend? What would you cut? And that should be the mindset. And so more than just the actual act of digging in and doing it, always be thinking that way.
Great advice. Great advice, Doug. I'm kind of like that myself. I always, always look down the road. There was a question from Bob Joint. If you were starting your business today, would you immediately begin working with a professional coach like ATI or Elite?
Like as the non-coach on the panel? Absolutely. And I've always said that, like whether, there's tons of great companies out there that can help you with your business. And there is no time like the present to start learning. So whether it is Elite or any of the others, and and I know Bob Cooper. I've met Bob several times. They're a great company. They, how can that not help you be better at any stage of your business?
I think that should be in the business plan. And if not, and again, the younger shop owners are listening, and I know a lot of them do. Please heed this great wisdom. These guys here are telling you, listen, my younger self, I should have had a coach 20, 25 years ago. And I don't even think the coaching business was ever invented that far ago. But I know there were some 20 groups going on back then, and peer groups and business development groups. But boy, I'll tell you, the wisdom, the business acumen that comes from the coaching people will accelerate your business within a few years that you've never expected.
If you want to retire young, get into a peer group or have a coach. I've got some friends with a husband-wife team that started a shop in St. Louis, and they went to a seminar the first year they were in business. And when they left there, the wife looked at the husband and she said, "We need this." And he said, "We can't afford it." And she said, "We can't not afford it." And they were in a coaching program the entire time that they were in business, and they retired young, just like I did. And I'm not saying that's everybody's goal, but I tell you what, the older you get and the longer you're in this business, you'll see that goal starting to pop up on the horizon.
Great point taken. Jim Hayes has a comment here on the Zoom. He says, we call that productive paranoia, that we want to be busy. And, Ron, I think you were saying how busy we can be, and we think we're successful. And profit is not an ugly 6-letter word, because activity doesn't necessarily mean profit. So look at, we're here talking about the power of hindsight. The old 2020, had I known what I know now, oh my God, how successful I'll be. And this episode has been about, what would I tell my younger self? Guys, let me ask you one final question. Why does it take so long to accept ideas, direction, and accountability?
Because we already know it all. No, I mean, seriously, when you're younger, I mean, let's say you're 25 years old and you're looking at someone that's 50 or 55 years old trying to give you advice. You always look at them like, well, they don't know it my way. They're from a different generation, stuff like that. And I think it makes it more difficult to take advice. I remember when I was early on, my first or second year as a career as a technician, there was an older gentleman that owned a parts store, and he told me one time, I didn't even ask for advice. I was in there getting some brake pads or something. He goes, "I'm going to give you some advice." He said, "Even if it's only $50, he goes, start putting money away into a retirement account every month. Start now. Because someday you're going to be like me, and you're not going to want to be working anymore, and you're going to be forced to work." And I didn't take that advice because I thought, well, I'm earning all this money. It's always going to be here. But later on, it came around and became good advice. So I think some of it is generational.
We talked before about humility, and I'll touch on that in a second. But I mean, I think pride could be an issue when you're young. You're proud, and you feel like, hey, I want to keep a tough exterior going. I mean, I always talk about this idea of being humble and leadership. And do those two concepts seem like they're in conflict in some way? And I think not at all, because I think to be a strong leader, you have to set pride to the side. You have to be humble, and you have to admit that you need help. And I think a strong leader is somebody who admits that they need help and goes out and seeks the answers and finds the correct path. When people see that you're on the correct path and that you've got a purpose and that you're after something, they're ready to follow. And so, again, I don't know if it's pride at a young age that keeps you from asking for help, but you should put all that aside, because getting the right answer and finding the correct path is what matters. And the faster you get there, the faster you're going to be able to set up that retirement account that Ron's talking about And whatever your goals are in life, you'll be getting there faster by doing that sooner. And that's something that I think if I had thought that way and put more investment in that earlier on, there's no question it would have made a difference for where we are now. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
To your point, Doug, there's never been so many resources. I mean, just like this show and all the coaching, Corum, like you're talking about. I mean, it's so available. Wasn't 20 years ago. It was not 30 years ago, and it was hard to get information. You might go to a Napa seminar or go to a B.F. Goodrich training class, and nobody would talk. They would just sit there and afraid to give away their trade secrets. And Carm, with your show, you've broken down some walls, and kudos for that. But I think we all have to go through a process. I think we all have to grow up. Just like Doug said, you have to have the ego, the tough skin. It's all about me, and then you're going to get your ass kicked about 3 or 4 times, and you're going to realize, all right, maybe I need to listen because I'm broke. I've got nothing in the bank. And like Ron says, save. I would say take 5% of your gross sales every week and put it in a reserve account. Gross sales total, stick it in a reserve account. Make it attached to your business checking, transfer it over on Monday morning. I don't care if you're going to have nothing left. Keep doing it. It will amaze you what that accrues to over a year's time. Keep doing that. Year number 2, you're going to be in a better place.
So many coaching companies tell their clients you need 4 to 6 months worth of reserves just to get by who knows what. Guess what? We're into who knows what right now.
Yep.
Welcome to the new order.
Let me try to sum this puppy up. Ron, you mentioned giveaway secrets, or no, Chris, I think it was mentioning secrets. And, on my show, if you follow us at all, you've heard me discover, I figured out what the secret sauce is that people don't want to tell anyone. And that is that my rent's due and I haven't paid my rent in 6 months. I haven't cashed my own personal paycheck. I probably can't make payroll this Friday. And I haven't paid my parts bill in 3 months, and they've shut me off, and the next supplier is ready to shut me off. And those are my secrets that I don't want anyone to know, because I have a beautiful new F-150 out in the yard, and people look at me in my neighborhood like, wow, this really cool businessman. Look at how he's rich. He's successful beyond means. Family doesn't know how I'm struggling, and that's my secret, and I'm willing to take it to my grave. So I've been on this huge kick lately called Adopt a Shop. And so if this is the perfect show, what would I tell my younger self? I would love to encourage anyone who would classify themselves as a legacy guy. Remember you said, Ron, that generation of the wisdom. Well, here comes this gray-haired guy walking down, knocking on my door saying, hey, let's go have coffee. Well, what do you want? You're my competitor. And if you can convince that person that there's no way that they should worry about you as their competitor, there's enough business for everyone, you may be able to open up an incredible dialogue with that individual down the road and do a little Dutch uncle adopt a shop stuff and move people into a new direction to realize the importance of coaching and peer groups and labor rates and how to run a better business. And and then of course my selfish reason is turn them onto the podcast so they can find their own personal networking, because that's what these episodes have done for the last 5 years. People that don't want to join the groups, they can learn on their very own this way. Well, guys, thank you so much. Ron Haugen, retired shop owner. Oh my God, amazing. I think we did a show on when you sold your business, and you've been so kind, Ron, in the early days, 5 years ago, to come on with us. Now he's a coach for Elite. Chris Monroe from Monroe Tire and Service shop. He's shop owner from Shelby, North Carolina, and also a part-time Elite coach. And Doug Grills from AutoStream Car Centers, multi-shop owner, 6 shops, Baltimore, Maryland. And thank you guys for spreading the love and the wisdom here during these unprecedented times. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Carm.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good luck to everybody out there. Let's all pull together and get through this thing.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.